Here now in Israel, the parliament continues to debate a bill that could drastically cut tax-sharing revenue with the Palestinian Authority due to the PA's refusal to drop the so-called Martyrs Fund that pays monthly stipends to the families of Palestinian prisoners and convicted terrorists who have killed or injured Israeli citizens. Many lawmakers in Israel say the PA is supporting terrorism. This debate right now may be part of President Trump's peace plan. His team of Middle East advisors could present its proposal in a few months. That team includes Jason Greenblatt, who has visited Israel and the West Bank several times this year. Also his son-in-law and advisor, Jared Kushner, who wrapped up a secret trip to Saudi Arabia just a few weeks ago. And speaking about the possibility of a Trump peace plan, if it would work, what the chances are that we'll learn details about what it contains. Here in our studio, I'm joined by Ahmed Ghonim, a Palestinian rights activist, also former member of Fatah, and also attorney and activist Ron Bar Yoshafat. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for being with us. We don't know, the fact is, the details about Trump's peace plan, but perhaps this bill pushing its way through the Knesset, Israel's parliament, has something to do with it. You know, let me start with you, Ahmed. We know that Trump himself and his team have repeatedly, outspokenly said that these payments to convicted terrorists' families must stop if the peace process is to move forward. It has to come to an end. Will it come to an end?
It will not. It's our rights, our money. Mr. Trump, I think that the initiative of Trump still it's in progress. It doesn't end. Nothing is clear about this initiative. But but related to the issue of the taxes, the Israeli government are collecting this taxes on behalf of the Palestinian National Authority. So the money is our money, and it's our right to use it according to our needs. Part of the needs. This is the prisoners and the families of the prisoners. It will never cut, and we will not allow that to happen.
I mean, Ron, can I get your reaction to hearing that, especially because, you know, some of these prisoners or their families who are getting money have killed Israelis?
Yes, I think this is the perfect example of why we will probably not see peace in the near future, because it's like there's an incitement and an encouragement to create terror against Israelis. You get more money if you're sitting in an Israeli prison because you murdered Israelis than if you're a teacher under the PA. If that's the case, I really don't see why my tax money should pay for such events. This is encouraging terror. I think American tax dollars should not pay for this. I would actually take a step forward and use sanctions against this.
The Palestinian Authority position, they've maintained that not everyone, the term terrorist is so thrown around so much that not everyone who is in jail is convicted of a violent offense. Some are conspiracy or they're hanging around the wrong people. They didn't actually commit offenses. You need to support the families, give them employment, give them money to buy food, give them vocational training to stop the cycle of violence. They have no other source of income.
I completely disagree. First of all, this notion that, oh, not everyone that is in the prison is a terrorist, that's nonsense. We're talking about people who
we're talking about thousands of people.
We are talking about thousands of people who are trying to commit acts of terror or have succeeded committing acts of terror against Israelis, meaning either wounding them or killing them. That's number one. Number two, to say that that's the reason for a positive income. In which society, in which other place in the world would you say, oh, I want to take someone out of poverty, let's give them money in case they murder someone? That's nonsense. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. Furthermore, I just want to say that what is the behavior of a society that says, this is my money, I will do whatever I want with it, I will glorify people who are using violence in order to achieve their political means.
What else about, one part of Trump's peace plan likely is to be about the Martyrs Fund. Another part likely will be about settlements. Trump himself turned to Netanyahu and said, you have to hold back on settlements. We'd like you to hold back. There have been thousands of apartment homes that have been greenlit for construction. Even a new settlement itself has been authorized. Isn't that a big obstacle for peace? The Palestinians say, look what the construction is going on right now.
I dispute the argument that Jews living in Judea is an obstacle to peace. Thousands of apartments is nothing. We're talking still less than 5% of all of Judea and Samaria, which until 1967 was illegally occupied by Jordan.
Ahmed, when you hear that, though, that it's nothing, it's only a few hundred, it's only a few thousand, is it really, is it nothing? Is it an obstacle?
It's very hard to hear this kinds of speeches. It's misleading the international community. This is the occupation. This is the eyes of the occupations. This is the tongue of the occupations. You have to know that the Israeli government is the terrorist in this area, and they are, if they are talking about cutting the salary, they have to cut the salary of the Israeli government who killed so much Palestinians because of this occupation. The settlement in West Bank and Gaza is a serious obstacle, and it will continue as an obstacle without resolving the settlement and putting end for this issue. I think the peace process will be dangerous and will never continue.
John?
Fatah takes pride in the fact that they're the organization that has killed the biggest amount of Israelis in the world.
I'm proud to be Fatah.
Okay,
I'm proud to struggle against the occupation.
When we're talking. When someone calls Israel...
Tell me the source of pride moving forward to try and get peace. What do you hope? What does Fatah represent for peace?
We accept the two-state solution, and we are still committed to the two-state solution. We were brave. President Arafat was brave to accept the principle of the peace process according to the two-state solution. Israel is escaping. The Prime Minister of Israel is escaping from the concept, and is trying to put the obstacle in front of the initiative, which is in progress in front of Trump initiative. I think that Israel have been after Rabin. There are no leader in Israel who committed to the peace process. Fatah is promising the goodwill for both the Palestinian and the Israeli side, the safe, the security, and the serious peace.
Ron, is there a leader in Israel that can make this peace happen?
Before that, I just want a short lesson in history. The Arkai terrorist Arafat created Fatah in 1964. In that time, Israel had no control of the Gaza Strip or Judea and Samaria. At that time, they had one goal, and that was the annihilation of Israel. And I would argue that's still their goal. It's not a two-state solution. It's a two-step solution. Number one. Number two, Rabin never talked about a two-state solution. It only began with the Clinton administration and the roadmap later on. I completely dispute the concept that this will be a peaceful solution.
Do you think that Trump really can make progress here? We don't know his details, but he's been here. He sent negotiators. Is there a chance?
I think he's able to do that. He's a strong man with a special character, but I believe it's possible for him to, and he able to do to achieve the goals of the peace. It's important to clarify the initiative and to end the progress of this initiative and to declare it. We need to discuss and to exchange information with the Trump team to improve the initiative in itself to be successful for both sides, the Palestinian and the Israeli side.
Very quickly.
I just want to give you one thing to think about. Can you give me one other example in the history of humanity where there was a movement for liberation that refused a deal? Can you imagine the Kurds would say, well, we're not going to have a Kurdistan if it's not Greater Kurdistan?
We'll have to leave it here. Ahmed and Ron, thank you so much for being part of this discussion. We'll see what Trump comes up with, and more news ahead on Daily Dose.